Hi, hello people, so I'm sorry if you can hear anything from that way. It's the summer holidays and my neighbours are off work looking after the grandchildren, and once again, I'm sorry for a puppy. This is a video that I've been thinking about making for a while, and I've been sat on the ideas until I kind of had one solid coherent thought, and it turns out I don't have a solid coherent thought. It's kind of an amalgamation of me just going bleh. Started when I watched Suicide, well actually it kind of started before then with Ghostbusters, but when the idea for this video came along was through Suicide Squad and Jack Howard's review on Suicide Squad. So if you want to know what I felt about Suicide Squad, watch Jack's video. I'll put it in the doobly doop below. That's basically my opinions on Suicide Squad. Jack mentions how films are now kind of made for sequels. Like, you don't a standalone movie that has tied off ends and then they go, you know what, let's make another one. It's just kind of like, let's leave all these loose ends to make another movie so we can roll in that cash. And I'm not in for that. That's not why I like movies. I like movies because they have a solid story that makes you feel something, and then at the end you can kind of go, I'm glad that problem was resolved. And Jack mentioned Back to the Future as a prime example of a movie that is standalone but has sequels, and those sequels are equally standalone. And I'm going to use an example of The Mummy. I ramble on later about reboots. We'll get into it. And like, Jack's main problem was the fact that Suicide Squad had so many unanswered questions, and he compared it to Guardians of the Galaxy because Guardians of the Galaxy had a pop like culture soundtrack, but Guardians was a film, it had no unanswered questions. Obviously Guardians is part of the bigger MCU, so they drip fed knowledge. So if you'd watched all of the other MCU films before Guardians, you saw things that people who hadn't necessarily didn't get. But it didn't detract from your love of that movie, because that movie is freaking phenomenal. Why do we have this unnecessary need to create everything into a franchise at the moment? I mean, I know why, money makes the world go round, but what happened to having a solid movie, and if it did well, then coming up with another solid idea for a movie and making them tie in so it was a sequel, but it still stood alone by itself? What happened to that? What happened to that? You can watch Back to the Future 2 without having watched Back to the Future. Does watching Back to the Future help you to watch the second? Yes, it does. I freaking love The Mummy. Obviously, we won't count the shit show known as the third one. We'll just skip over that one existing. It's one of those films that we can put on, no matter where it is in the film, and just start quoting it. We've been known to go to Universal in Florida, go on the Mummy ride and walk going, my eyes, and like, immortal, and then get jump scared by the Universal Studios cast members. But The Mummy is a standalone film. It has no unanswered questions. It answers everything in that film, and it's great. The Mummy Returns is the same. Obviously it helps if you do watch the first one, but that is a standalone movie which you can watch, not having watched the first one, and understand everything. Oh, freaking lorries. Why I mention The Mummy though is because this is the main problem I have, and going on to Ghostbusters, the remake. They are remaking or rebooting The Mummy. Why? In my opinion, there is nothing wrong with The Mummy. Yet they're remaking it with Tom Cruise. What is that gaining? What the frick is that gaining for anybody? Apart from lining Tom Cruise's pocket, and I don't think he's short of a few bob. That made me think of Hazel's video on Ghostbusters, and I'll also link that below because my opinions on the Ghostbusters remake are very similar to Hazel's. Hazel created this fantastic sequel. The sequel that should have been, where you felt a connection to the new characters because they were somehow linked to the old Ghostbusters. But that didn't happen. Why? Who the fuck knows? Ghostbusters, the new one, didn't fail because it was all women. It failed because it was a shit story with characters nobody gave a rat's ass about, because they basically just went, let's pretend the first Ghostbusters, which is like one of those films everybody has watched and so embedded in our pop culture, they just kind of went, nah, let's pretend that didn't exist, let's reboot it with women, because that's what people want. They want more female characters. Yes, we do, but not like that. I'm also sick of remaking movies that do not need to be remade. The Jungle Book is a prime example. Now, I was so excited for The Jungle Book because I thought it would be a more kind of close to the book, like Rudyard Kipling version of The Jungle Book. Very similar, actually, to the Cinderella remake, where there was no music in it at all. There was no, like, Cinderella singing, but they still had Trust in Me, and also, I want to be like you. The whole point of you having this new technology to recreate this film, which I also agree with Hazel, is that's not a valid reason to remake a fucking film. But you had this new technology to make it more realistic because there's a real life boy in there with all these CGI animals to make it very Life of Pi-y. Yet you then make things sing. Why? That's taken away from the realism, and to be fair, I think I would have enjoyed The Jungle Book more if it hadn't had any singing, because then that's achieving what I thought it was going out to achieve, which is to make a more realistic version of The Jungle Book. Now, I haven't seen Peach Dragon yet, but from what I've heard, if you don't know, Peach Dragon is also a remake. What I've heard from people who adore Peach Dragon, the original 1977 version, is instead of Pete's need for Elliot, who's the dragon, it's all about Elliot's need for Pete. Obviously, the whole point of Reboot is to add to it, to change it, like Planet of the Apes is now, instead of from the human's perspective, it's from the apes' perspective. And that makes sense, because I think the Planet of the Apes reboots are fantastic, and it's a good use of technology to make something better. And also show it from the apes' perspective of, look how horrendous as humans we are. Peach Dragon, that's not enough of a story change to justify it. Like, obviously, the 1977 version is pretty crap, and I've admitted it's crap, but it's the heart of the story that makes you fall in love with it. And it's Pete's need for Elliot that is that whole entire film. You're flipping a story that makes it this dragon's need for Pete. Now, why would a freaking dragon need a little boy? That makes no sense, because it's taken away everything you love from that original and kind of going, meh. From a reboot, you want something new, but you equally don't want it to take away from the heart of a film. Are we living in a generation of reboots and remakes? Because if we are, I'm not into that, because there's thousands of creators on YouTube, there's thousands of creators across the world over various platforms that, and there's just thousands of stories out there to be told. And why are they not getting told, yet we're having bloody another remake of something? Why? Like, I have no problems with a good reboot, if it's for a valid reason. Equally, I have no problem with a sequel or a cinematic universe, as long as each film can stand alone by itself as a flipping fantastic movie. That's all I want. It can carry on from it, or it carries on from a film. Like, even if it's like a couple years later, this has happened, and because this has happened, we're living in this world. Complete stories. Back to my point of the Mummy remake. What I've read on Wikipedia and other sites, because Wikipedia is clearly very, very reliable, it's going to have the same problem as Ghostbusters. It seems to me that they've just added more women to kind of go, that's what the people want. They want more female characters, so let's just add females in, because that's what they want. Is it kind of rebooting a film and adding more women, or like completely changing it for women, isn't equality? That's not what equality is. I don't know what I've said anymore. That's how infuriated I am. to add to the shitstorm that this remake has given me, is part of a shared fictional universe by Universal, which are rebooting a load of old horror stories. Started with Dracula Untold. Now, I haven't watched that because I don't really like Dracula. But they're gonna reboot Van Helsing too. Now, what's the matter with the original Van Helsing? I thought the original Van Helsing was great. Like, we've got more of this shit show to continue on with for at least like another couple years apparently. Anyway, I hope there was one coherent thought in there somewhere amongst all of this. I'd love to know what your opinions are on film originality, about reboots, sequels. Leave them all in the comments below. It'd be great. I don't know how to end this. I got really angry. So, yeah, thank you for watching. Bye!